this is my version of environmentalism. Instead of all of the junky plastic stuff, it lasts forever. Instead of just throwing it away, let's give the kids one more chance to do something with it.
Hi, this is Rusty Keeler, and you're listening to the Play Nature Podcast, where we talk about play, nature, playing in nature, and the nature of play. I'm glad you're here. Let's have a listen. Welcome to part 2 of my great conversation with Teacher Tom Hobson. So without further ado, here we go. We'll pick up where we left off.
But, you know, we're going out into nature, and there's that ethic of you don't want to destroy nature, right? Well, when we were playing unsupervised, there was a certain amount of picking the bark off of trees. There was a certain amount of pulling plants up by the roots. There was a certain enough amount of saying, well, these leaves are pretty, I'm going to collect these, or these flowers are nice and collect these. And like you just said, though, it seems destructive in our modern world. We think about it as destructive, and a lot of these nature programs talk about it as destructive. But that's how you create the connection, is learning everything about a plant. I mean, when I say to a child, hey, this plant is a carrot, where's the carrot? It's growing underground. What's the next thing they're going to want to do? Yes, they want to pull it out and see the carrot.
Yep. Yeah, man.
And that's
Yeah,
how
for sure, for sure. I know what a maple leaf feels like all seasons of the year because I've picked maple leaves, as a child, my whole life, and I've what the veins are because I've you pulled them, even pulled them apart,
Yeah.
and that could be like, oh, is that destructive, or is it making that connection, like understanding or seeing the patterns of the universe through that because you're experiencing it and you're pulling the flowers off a sunflower head.
Part of learning about things is taking them apart. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a real big part of learning about things. And that doesn't just go for natural things. I know that one of the reasons that I call that playground at Woodland Park the junkyard playground is I recognize that, because okay, there was this one boy one time we had all these so we had the caution cones, those orange caution cones, or we
Yeah.
had the same type of thing, but they were big cylinders, and sometimes you see those on construction
Oh
sites
yeah.
or road work, and we had like 3 or 4 of those on the playground, and they have these weighted bottoms. And I watched one boy, he's carrying one, right? And these are big sturdy things, but he's carrying it across the playground. And then he stopped and he arranged it on the ground in a certain way, and I was just fascinated. What's he doing? And we had this giant crate that had been donated to us from a guy who buys art for a living, and this was a crate that had been built to protect some Degas sculpture or something. And it was this incredible. The crate was great. I don't know about the sculpture. The crate, and he climbed up on this crate and he jumped off, and I just heard the crack. He broke this cylinder.
Hmm.
And so this was early in my teaching career, and I sort of, I said, Henry, why'd you break that? And he said, well, I said, what'd you do that for? And he said, well, I wanted to see if I could break it. And, duh, right? I mean, that was a classic, trial and error science experiment. He
Yeah.
had a question through his play. He answered it. He found out he could break it. I've
Yeah.
had people tell me, no, those things are indestructible. They're destructible. I watched a 5-year-old break
Yeah.
one. And it had been outside for a long time, so it was kind of brittle too. But and I realized, and I kind of talked to him a little bit about property and that kind of stuff, not destroying things. But now I feel guilty about that now, because that is a very important part of play. Is sometimes play means destroying something. It means taking something all the way apart, and it's not on purpose necessarily. It's in fact often when a kid breaks something, they bawl.
Hmm.
They can't believe it happened and they bawl. But it's an important part of understanding. You have to look at something from every single perspective, including as it's being broken, before you can really understand that. And that's what that hands-on learning is all about. And
Hmm.
so for me, I think that's why I love the idea of, I had a boy one time, he'd never been on our playground before. And he came up to me with a car that had no wheels on it. So it was just a toy car. And it was just this little plastic car with no wheels. And he said, and he was verbally, he wasn't quite there yet. He was like 2 or maybe 2.5. He said, broken. And I said, yeah, it's broken. And then I kind of joked and I just said, everything out here is broken. And he thought that was funny. So he took it as a challenge. He started trying to find something on our playground that wasn't broken. He found a doll, but the arm was missing. He found like a xylophone that had some of the keys taken off of it.
Yeah.
He found a ball that was deflated. Everything he found turned out there was some aspect of it that you would call broken. And I started hunting with him too, because I thought, well, certainly there's something out here that is
Yeah, I
broken.
didn't really mean that. Everything. Yeah.
Some of those trophies, almost every one of them, the figure had been broken off the base.
Yeah.
Everything was out there. I realized everything broken. And then he held up a stick and he said, "That's not broken."
Uh,
And then we both sat there for a second and we go, "It broke off a tree." And then, and then the leaves had come off a tree, and then rocks have broken off of, and we realized then we realized that great truth. Everything's broken. And if it's not broken now, it's going to be broken.
hmm.
That's
Hmm.
basic Buddhism, right?
Ooh,
The
yeah.
glass you're drinking out of is already broken, so appreciate it right now.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
So I realized it's deep philosophy sometimes when you're out there doing this stuff.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a direction to go.
Uh,
But well, let's just look at that. So we're getting into the junk playground concept then,
yeah, right.
right? And so, there's a lot of well-meaning, amazing educators out there that want to create beautiful environments,
Yeah,
and they get nice materials, and there's pictures of books and all this stuff, and I love it. You want to give children nice things, but that creates a very different perspective in the adult's mind of when they're using things
yeah.
versus the junk playground. What would you say to people like that?
Well, that's what that Little World experiment I mentioned to you that started the whole experiment outside it started because I would see back then it was like Pinterest, I think was the thing. And I'd see these beautiful little fairy gardens that people
Yeah.
had created for the preschool. And I was going, this is beautiful. Oh my God, I want that for my kids.
Yeah.
And so I started off with like this little area that was set up for this.
Yeah.
And then I like right away, kids loved it. They absolutely loved the toys. So they were out there playing with it. But then I'd watch a kid take one of the toys and start walking away. And they'd start going to another part of the playground. And I found myself saying, "Oh, that belongs in Little World. That belongs in Little World." And suddenly I realized that's all I was doing all day long. So I realized that's the wrong environment for me because I was buying into that Pinterest idea or whatever we want to call it, the TikTok idea or that beautiful setup. And it does. And there's nothing wrong with starting that way,
Hmm.
right? There's nothing wrong with creating something beautiful and set it up.
Uh-huh.
But if you don't let the children move those parts around, I mean, there's that theory of loose parts, right? That Simon Nicholson, the theory of loose parts. And, the first word in that is loose,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
second one is parts, right? They're loose and they're parts. They're not part of anything until the child declares them part of something, right? And so I'll never forget I just said, I gave up. I gave up on Little World. I just said, and all the pieces, they were little things. So they all disappeared. They got buried in the sand. They got lost in the leaves. They were all gone. And then one day, like 3 months later, I was out on the playground. I saw that somebody had made a little fairy house in the corner.
Ah,
But it had
yeah.
spontaneously, the child, him or herself, I don't know who did it. That child had created that space there. And I realized that, Little World was dead. Long live Little World. And that's to me, whenever I think of loose parts play or junkyard playground, that's where it starts for me. But yeah, they can't be precious, right? If you have something that you're worried is going to get broken or lost, it doesn't belong in a preschool playground.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example of something precious that I treated differently. And the kids need to know it's different. When I was a boy, I collected Matchbox cars. This was before Hot Wheels.
Yep. Yep. Me too.
And my mom pulled them out of the attic one time when she was moving and she needed to get rid of them. She said, "Do you want these anymore?" And I said, "I'll take them to the preschool." But once I got them to the preschool, I thought, I can't just throw these out there for the kids. These are too precious to me.
Yes. Yeah.
So what I did is I would tell the kids, I had this collector's case with all of them in their little compartments and everything.
Ooh.
It was really nice. So I'd show it to them. I'd say, "This is from when I was a boy. These are really special to me. I want you to play with them. I'm going to put them on that table over there, and I'm going to ask you, please don't crash them and just leave them on the table." And they still got crashed and everything, but it was great because they would play so delicately with
Uh-huh.
it. And
Uh-huh.
it's amazing because the stereotype is that the little girls like playing the little tight things like that, and the boys like big motor stuff. Every boy was over there, like carefully driving these, opening the little doors, and then they put it back in the
Yes.
case. And I didn't have to be there managing them. They were doing it because I told them it was special to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this was
Mm-hmm.
a thing that was not one of your free play toys. This was just something if you want to interact with it. So I think there's a space for that, but
Mm-hmm.
you've got to be very, you can't also do a play-based program or a true play program where you have a lot of that going on. To me, this is why I mentioned before the parents, right? Anytime they're cleaning out their attic or their cellar or anything like that, I would just say, if you've got more than 20 of something, or if you've got something that's really cool, bring it in.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
kids find out if, and so this was stuff that was already on its way to the landfill. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I think about all the time is that preschools or any place young children are playing should be the stop between your junk and the landfill.
Uh,
We
yes.
should, in fact, there should be a preschool
Okay.
or an early childhood center
That is
attached to
interesting.
every landfill or every. We had a transfer station like within walking distance of our school, and we would go. And they actually built an observation room at this place. It was a brand new facility, and
Okay.
we would go there like once a month, and we would go up and stand in the observation room watching them do the junk. And these guys in there, they started seeing us. The guys at the dump started collecting things they
Be like,
thought we
look
might
at
want to take
this.
back, and they would arrange them in little displays for people to take away.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so for me, it's this is my version of environmentalism. You're
Hmm.
right. Instead of all of this junky plastic stuff, it lasts forever. Instead of just throwing it away, let's give the kids one more chance to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, hot glue guns are one of the things that somewhat controversial that I would let young children play with. I'd let even 2-year-olds use them. And, don't they get burned? Yes, they do. Everybody gets burned when they use a hot
Yeah.
glue,
Yep.
right? And
Self-included.
you rarely get burned the second time, right? The first
Mhm.
time then oh yeah, stay away. Well, adults get burned every time, but young children, once they burn themselves once, are pretty good about
Yeah.
remembering. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
keep
No.
away from that. And then I'd watch those older kids, like the 5-year-olds. They would be working, and then they would just shake their finger. They wouldn't cry or anything. They'd just keep going.
Right. Right.
Anyway, just the stuff from the recycling box. You can build amazing. You can build forts. You can build dollhouses. You can build rocket ships. You can build anything out of your recycling box. Every can, every box, everything like that. And I've gotten in this terrible habit. It drove my wife crazy. I save every little thing.
Uh-huh.
Every
You're like,
little.
this could be good. Yes, we could do something with this for sure.
I can't
Yeah.
do it. I don't know what to do with it, but I
Yeah.
guarantee a child would know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so we would just keep boxes of that. That's why the junk was. And then at some point the kids could just roam around the playground looking for stuff they want to add to their to whatever they're doing. Sometimes they would want to play games that involve like commerce, right? They'd say, I have a store. Well, you need money for a store. So what the money's gonna be? Wood chips or something else that was out there in the playground. Or they would say, okay, any doll counts as money. And they'd go out and find little figurines, and then they'd have to negotiate. Well, what really is, well, that one's worth like 3. And so they're doing all this math. They're
Yeah.
doing all this economics learning, but it's just play with the junk. For me, Simon Nicholson to me, I think of him as a philosopher. Because if you've probably read that original article of his in Landscape Architecture magazine, 77, I think it was, something like that,
Hmm.
72. It was one of those. And the article was entitled "How Not to Cheat Children."
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
like he made that point. He goes, most of our spaces, when you go to a library or a museum or something like this, these are spaces that have been the fun part is over. Some architect, some genius, some one of the gifted few has designed this place, and the rest of us just to go look at it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need places where we get to be the ones creating the space. And we needed it. His argument was adults should have that too, right? That it should be
Yeah.
present for us in all spaces of life. And that really has influenced me because I always think is that you said, create this beauty. My playground was always beautiful. Just it's just not
Yeah.
from my perspective necessarily.
Yeah.
It was from the perspective of a child. Most children would walk at that playground. You could just see they were stunned by the beauty of it, the excitement of it. And maybe beauty is not the word they would use,
Yeah.
but it was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard a quote in the play work world about these kind of playgrounds, certain playgrounds of they ain't pretty, but they're beautiful.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they evolve, they change. They're always see, that's the other piece that I love about it is that these beautiful spaces, when you have to put all the pine cones back in the basket every day and all of the rocks back in the rock box and all of this stuff, they stay the same. Each day you show up and it's static.
Yeah.
Whereas I love the living, breathing aspect of a junkyard playground or an adventure playground or whatever word you're using, because each day you come in and you find it completely different. So often, because we had these different groups of kids coming in, like the older kids would come in and say, the little kids ruined it. And that they would have to fix it and make it back to the way they wanted it. And then the
Uh,
little kids would come in and say, oh, the big kids, ruined it. And then they would have to fix it the way they wanted it. And
yeah.
that's exactly what Nicholson was talking about is each of us should we are all the gifted few. We are the
Mm-hmm.
gifted many who should be
Mm-hmm.
out there creating our spaces. Because after all,
Yeah.
architecture, our spaces, our architects, our environments, that's the first art form. That's
Mm.
the very first art form. I think it comes before dance, even. We were creating spaces, although dance is pretty close up there, dance and
Mm-hmm.
rhythm. But it's one of the very first art forms we have. And our spaces really influence how we think and how we feel. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have a space where you look around and the answer is yes to almost anything you think,
Mm.
the answer is
Mm-hmm.
yes. That's what freedom is.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
want children that I teach to understand what freedom is. Now, I know most of them are going to go on to like standard schools.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, a lot of them are. They're going to go on and they're going to, they're going to love kindergarten. Then they're going to like not like first grade as much. And then by the time they're in fifth grade, they're going to hate everything. And I've watched that
Oh,
phenomenon over and over again.
oh,
Well, it's not
yeah.
that they hate everything because they still come back and brag that their school's better than my school, but but they come back, but they're the children in the preschool always cried on the weekends.
Yeah.
Those kids are
Yeah.
like, I say, well, why are you visiting to me on a Wednesday? It's a day off. It's parent teacher conferences. Yeah, and they're excited to not be in school.
Yeah.
That tells me that they would, I think,
Yeah.
my school was a place they wanted to escape into, the junkyard playground concept.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I know they're going to go on there, but I want them to still have that in the back of their minds. I still want them to know what that feeling is.
Of freedom and
Freedom,
agency and possibility. Yeah.
autonomy of knowing that you can ask and answer your own questions. You don't only have to answer the questions that somebody else is asking you.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was. So somebody after they listen to this can tell me who actually said this originally, but I love this. We know that there might be hard times ahead for some of these kids or harder times. But what we're doing is fattening them up, right? You don't starve to prepare for a famine,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You fatten yourself up for the famine,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before
Mm-hmm.
hibernation, the bear fattens himself up. So I'm hoping to get these kids strong and robust so that when they go out there in the world, one of the songs that we always sing is Little Boxes.
Ah,
It's a
yeah.
classic preschool song at one level.
Mm.
Little boxes on there's a green one and a pink one. And you've got all this, it's very simple, and the people and the houses, and they all go, but you and I know there's a subversive level to that song,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because people are being put into little boxes all the same. And they're
Yeah.
all made out of ticky tacky.
Yeah.
The kids always know that ticky tacky means plastic. If you ask them, they'll always say it means plastic. And I know that when we're doing it in the preschool, they're just they're not talking about colors and boxes and people in and out and all those fundamental, ideas. But someday I'm hoping that at least one of those kids says, wait a minute, they're trying to put me in a little box all the same. Right? I mean, that's kind of what I want them because music sticks with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wrote a blog post about this, I don't know, gosh, a decade ago. And I got a letter, I got a note, I guess it was an email from Malva Reynolds wrote that song from her granddaughter.
Okay.
And her granddaughter said, "Thank you for keeping this song alive."
Ah.
And she was so happy about it, and she shared it around with everybody. She's a folk singer as well, so
Mm.
I know it's still alive out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's that idea of having a time in one's life for those young children where they can not be in a box physically and metaphorically, of like they have the freedom to find who they are and what it's like to work with other kids and find your parts of your trophy and mix it with your pine cones and mix it with the broken traffic cone and see what you can create, and then talking it out and having that foundation, that idea of, you're talking about fattening them up, but it's like maybe fattening up their sense of self
Yeah.
and their agency, and knowing that, oh, this is who I am and I'm going forward in life, and wherever that takes them, whether it's higher education and some job, or just fifth grade,
Yeah.
right? Like they know who they are and how to.
Sometimes I think it's sort of an act of violence to think about what's going to happen to these kids in the future, because what's important is what's happening right now. But just the other day, a parent whose son is now going to university, who had gone through my program, and this was a boy who at 2 years old was teaching himself how to read. He was one of these boys with the crackling kind of academic-y minds. And I remember his grandmother would say to me, she'd say, my son Max, he's so smart. He's the smartest kid. He shouldn't be in this place playing with these other kids. I mean, she really gave me that kind of that vibe. His mom, though, was, she was like, she knew he was in the right place.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she said to me, she goes, well, Max he's done well in school. He's gone through all the stuff and everything. He's decided he's going to be an actor, and he's going to NYU to be an actor. And she said, that's because of you, Teacher Tom. That's because of that play base, because he's
Uh,
still the smartest kid in class, but he really knows what he wants in life and what he wants to be doing in his life. She said, so I give you a lot of credit. He knew to find his own way, no matter what his grandma was saying, no matter what his teachers were telling him, because all his teachers were like, get into, the mathletes and do all this kind of stuff. And he knew that what he was focused on, and he was, his heart.
yeah.
Yeah. He
Mm,
was the kid who was always trapping bad guys. That was
yeah.
always, he was always building bad guy traps. He and his buddy, they spent all day long building bad guy traps. And I'd say, you catch any bad guys? Well, not today, but we're going to catch one tomorrow. And then
Uh,
one day, one of the moms was walking by and she tangled her feet up in these ropes that they had put there. And she
uh-huh.
stumbled a little bit. And the two boys looked at each other and said, she must be a bad guy. We caught her.
We got her. Oh my gosh. Well, hey, I have pictures. I can't wait to dive into look at some
Okay.
pictures of this.
All
But
right.
before that, I wanted just for advice for people who might have the nice basket of pine cones and the nice basket of marbles and and do beautiful things. I love loose parts also, but
Yeah.
to start to step in the direction of a junk playground, what those benefits, and how do you take first steps, and why should
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the first step is turn your back when the kids dump your stuff. When they dump it, just turn your back. Just know it's just let them do it. You can always pick it up later if you have to. The second one is to expand your mind of what loose parts means, right?
Hmm.
Because the truth is that loose parts they don't have to be little things, like planks of wood, shipping pallets. When we look at the pictures, you're going to see, to me, loose parts is anything that's movable, and it doesn't have to be movable by one kid. So the
Yeah,
best loose
yeah,
parts require a whole bunch of kids to move them.
yeah.
Because those are cooperative. Those are when they're working together. They're thinking outside the box and creating a community. So for me, that's that would be the first thing to do is open your mind. And also, the second you think something's precious, don't have it around kids. Don't use it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and understand they're all going to get lost and they're all going to get broken. Like
Mm-hmm.
those florist marbles. You mentioned the marbles, like those little florist marbles.
Yeah.
By the time, I mean, I'm sure on that playground by now there are over 100,000 of those buried in that.
Yep. Yep.
And
I
I
know
would just,
places like that.
yeah, I would just keep buying more. I keep
Yeah.
because they're pretty inexpensive.
Yep.
Uh, Joanne Fabric or Michaels or one of the stores would have a sale on them, and you would just buy big bags full of them, and I would just dump them outside, and the kids, they loved them, but they disappear. And then I found out they were going home in pockets.
Ah.
Which is okay. That's okay too, right? If they treasure it, they're loose parts. They can move.
Yeah. Huh. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Well, yeah. So I hope people are inspired and to think about loose parts in a new
Scared.
way and aesthetics in a new way. Yeah, they might be a little scared. All right. Are you inspired? Are you amazed? Are you ready to support your children's play? Are you ready for a junk playground in your backyard? Or a junk corner? Or just more loose parts? Yeah. Well, hope you're inspired to rock and roll with it all. And if you know anybody else that might be inspired by this conversation or this podcast, hey, you share it with them? You got a friend that you think might enjoy these topics? Yeah, why don't you send it along to them? Bring more people into our community here. All right, till next time. All right, thanks for listening. Do you have a comment or a question? Email me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. You know I like talking about this stuff. And maybe we could use your question on a future podcast episode. As always, I have some free goodies for you in the show notes, including my outdoor loose parts guide. Fun stuff in there. And so I wish you the best in your outdoor play adventures. And when it comes to adding nature to your yard, or loose parts, or saying yes to risky play, my favorite motto is dream big, start small, and never stop. Oh yeah. Woo, 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 woo. Let's do it. All right. Have fun out there.